Our next speaker is a third grade ELA teacher and a fourth grade ELA math science teacher at the Blessed Sacrament Catholic Academy in Brooklyn, New York. She has recently retired. She is looking forward to be home and to continue her advocacy for reading. She is a reading specialist, trainer, lecturer on early childhood education and reading in the Philippines and abroad. Owner and directors of St. Peter and Paul Early Childhood Center in Santa Rosa, Laguna. She was a past president of the Reading Association of the Philippines, past president of the International Development Coordinating Committee of International Reading Association that coordinated literacy activities in the 7 regions of the world. Imagine a world. And a former member of the IRA Board of Directors from 2009 to 2011, based in Delaware, USA. At present, she is the auditor of APTA. Ladies and gentlemen, to talk about teaching and inspiring children to love reading in and out of virtual learning, I am very proud to present to you. We call it her Ma'am Zali. None other than RIzalina, Cordial, Labanda! Wala ba kayo mga kamay? Yes, supervisor and a voluntary VPK, voluntary pre-kindergarten, director at Lemon City Child Learning Center, City of Miami under the Department of Human Services. She has almost 15 years of experience working with children, teaching early childhood from infants, toddlers, pre-K to VPK, including elementary early grades. At present, she supervises 3 centers at the City of Miami Child Learning Centers. She is an example of a teacher who rose from the ranks and never gave up to inspire and provide the best for her student, most especially the love for reading. Right after graduation at the Bicol State University in Legazpi City, she taught at her own school, St. Peter and Paul Early Childhood Center in Santa Rosa, Laguna, where she has shown her great passion for teaching young children. After passing the LET, she taught at Bicol University Integrated Laboratory School, where she was recognized as one of the best teachers in preschool. She was made part of a training team of the graduate school and shared her expertise as a demo teacher, trainer of daycare teachers in many public schools in the province of Albay. In 2009, she pursued her American dream and came to Florida and taught at Harvard Field Military Child Development Center in the Military Air Force Base as a lead teacher. She was recognized as an outstanding lead teacher and an excellent admin staff supervisor, di ba?
Galing.
Kinikilabutan ako. Okay, let's continue. In 2019, she earned her director credential from Florida Department of Children and Families that made her a supervisor and a VPK director, a position she now holds at the Center of Miami Child Learning Centers. Even as a supervisor, she never stops teaching and inspiring children to love reading. Ladies and gentlemen, I am so proud. It's a privilege, it's an honor to present to you our speaker, Cathy O. Cordial! Wala ko kayo mga kamay!
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Miss Irene.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm so happy I'll get to experience this moment where I'll be listening to 2 great teachers.
Thank you.
The floor is yours, Ma'am Sally!
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
The things that we are going to show to you this morning has something to do with teaching in and outside of your classroom. Okay? Cathy and I are both from Legazpi. She's my niece, and she really rose from the ranks. She was one of my best teachers in the school. Okay. Before I proceed, I'm going to give you the expectation or the objectives for the day's work. How do we teach and inspire our children to love reading? How can we help them develop a love of reading in and out of virtual classroom? The first concept that you are going to learn, and some of you might have already these ideas, but it's good to more or less remember and try to recall. Teaching kids to love reading. There are 4 ways that can inspire children to love reading. Help children develop a love of reading in and out of virtual learning. Part B, which is my talk, I am going to give you the components of a balanced literacy program, which includes read aloud, shared reading, guided reading, independent reading. But that is on the side of reading. Since it is balanced, we are going to have the writing portion, activity, but I'm not going to touch on that. Then, of course, I'm going to zero in on interactive reading aloud. Well, of course, part C, we are going to showcase readers. But I already give that as an advanced assignment for you to take a look because we might not have the time. Okay, so anyway, all handouts are given already in the classroom. At the end of this session, participants should be able to use strategies in teaching and inspiring children to love to read. Support children develop a love of reading during distance learning. Teach and inspire children to love reading in and out of virtual learning. Part B would reflect on the 4, you will be able to reflect on the 4 components of balanced literacy program. Do more IRA opportunities, meaning interactive reading aloud. Experiences to help produce lifelong readers. Explore strategies for creating rich and effective IRA experiences in your classroom. And part C, you are going to apply resources in teaching and inspiring children to love reading in and out of virtual learning. All right, take it away now, Kathy.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, my dearest Aunt Sally. Okay, before we start with our discussion, are you still there? Okay, before we start with our discussion, let me introduce to you my 2 kids, the puppet kids that I adopted in our school from Lemon City Child Learning Center. Are you ready to meet them? Okay. Do you still see me there?
Yes, teacher, we see you.
Okay. Okay, come on, kids, come on in. Hi, everyone. How are you today? Oh, I am so tired today. How are you? How's everybody? Good morning. My name is Casey.
Hi,
And
Casey.
I would like you to meet my friend. His name is Eli. Hello, everyone. How are you? My name is Eli, and we're here to listen to you. Did you meet them? Can you sing a song with them, Casey and Eli, before we start? Oh, yes. Good morning. Good morning. Hello, and how are you? Early in the morning. Good morning. Hello, and how are you? Wow, that's a good morning greetings. How about you, Eli? Can you sing with them too? Okay. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. Good morning, good morning, good morning to you. A day begins with so much to do. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning to you. Well, can you give them a round of applause, guys? Give them a round of applause. Okay. Now, these two puppet kids.
Excuse me, Kathy. Can we switch the screen down? Irene?
Tita.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
It's
Kathy.
okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, those two puppet kids really love to play, but they hate reading. How are we going to help and inspire them to love reading? Teachers, let's use your superpowers. Okay? Now, let's do our warm-up reading exercise. If you watched the video before, when they posted it in our classroom, in Google Classroom, some of you might know this one, okay? So, may I request everyone to view the gallery, go to gallery view before we do the reading exercise. Okay, make sure everyone should see everybody. Okay, and then we are going to, first, we're going to read the words. Second, we are going to chant the words with action. Third, we are going to sing it all together. Okay, so I will request everyone to unmute themselves and repeat after me. Remember, I need your participation today. Please participate. I'm waiting. Can everyone unmute? I see everyone is just smiling. Please unmute, guys. Miss Irene, can I request everyone to unmute? Okay, let's do the first exercise. Okay, repeat after me. When I'm reading,
Reading. I am reading.
I am reading.
Succeeding. A book.
A book.
take a look.
Take
Take
a
a
look.
look.
My
My mind just
Hello. You are new.
Okay.
Thank you.
Reference. Okay.
Hi.
I love to read.
I love to read.
Read and read and read.
To love to
I
read.
love to read.
Pinasin yung ano si Sister Giselle lyrically tweet. Naadoy ang gagawas.
Kathy, you are muted. Open.
I love to read.
Do you still hear me, guys?
Okay.
Nakikita na hindi
Now,
nabasa.
the chanting words with action. Are you ready?
Yes.
Follow me.
When I'm reading,
I'm succeeding.
I'm succeeding.
I pick up a book.
Pick up a book.
Take a look.
Take a look. I just
Yes.
love
Love
to read. Love to read. Love to read. Love
And read
and read and
Read and read.
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 Love to read.
Time.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now listen to this. This is the song that we're going to sing. Listen to the tune first, and we're going to play it with our musical instrument. If you have any, you can join me while I'm playing the guitar and singing the song. Okay? Can I request everyone to mute themselves first? Okay. Thank you. Now, the tune is like this. When I'm reading, I am succeeding. I pick up a book and take a look. My mind just starts to grow. When I'm reading, I am succeeding. I pick up a book and take a look. My mind just starts to grow. I love to read. I love to read. I love to read and read and read and read. I love to read. Did you get the tune? Okay.
More.
Now get your sticks, guys, your pens, your musical instrument, and we will play it with a guitar. Okay? If you can join me for singing, you can unmute. Okay? I see some children there. I see a little child there who is watching. I love it. You ready?
And come here.
Get your music. When I'm reading, I am succeeding. I pick up a book
And take a look. My mind just starts to go. I love to read. I love to read.
All right. Good job. Joining. Now you can mute yourself.
Okay.
Okay, please mute yourself now. Thank you. To those who joined with this reading exercise, a big applause for you. A round of applause for you. Because you know why? You are really a lively, a very inspiring teacher who can really help a child forward reading. So thank you, participants who joined our reading exercise. Now, can I see the next slide, please? Okay. So what we did before is just an exercise about teaching kids to love reading. But according to my research and some of my experiences, there are 3 things that we can do if we want our children to love reading. First, kids must listen to great stories every day. It should be every day. What is the best thing that you can do to help your child to become readers? Is there anyone who can type on a chat box? What is the best thing that you can do to help your child become a reader? Read aloud. It's already in front of you. Read aloud. Good job. You have to read with them. Okay? So those pictures that you've seen before is an example of a virtual reading aloud of a teacher. And then the children are very interested to listen to the stories because it's a great story that was read by an author. So next. Second, we have to invite students to wonder. Remember, wonder is at the heart of a deep and meaningful relationship with reading. So let them create their own wonder wall. Even you as a teacher, you can create a wonder wall. Look at me here. If you are teaching virtually, you can have your own wonder wall there and show it to your children. Okay, whatever they read, whatever they wonder, you can post it on your bulletin board. This is an example of a child, a 5-year-old child, who just started to read, and he started to wonder when he was reading about the prince and a princess, and he was wondering if he's a prince. He's asking, would you be his princess? So that's an example of wondering. Okay, invite your students to wonder. Next, encourage kids to share. Let them share what they read. Let them share what they know. So these are the example of the pictures that I got from Balik Turo online, who's doing their virtual reading, Kwentuhang Pambata, which they encourage the children to share what they know and what they feel, what they learn. The one on the top picture, he's a child Filipino actor who did the Simba, you know, the Lion King. Well, now he is sharing his talent, his skills. Through reading, he sing those words and he used a puppet. And on the right side, you will see a sample of my children there in the classroom. That's before pandemic. They are sharing their ideas about what they like to read, what they love to read. At the bottom picture, the children there, the 3 children, I encourage one of the parents to let their child read a story to their brothers or sister, to their relatives. Okay, that's another thing for letting them share what they read. Okay, so those are the 3 things that we can do in teaching kids to love reading. Next slide, please. Okay, now there are 4 ways can inspire children to love reading. How can we support our children's love of reading and their reading growth at home? How? First, give them something to read. Provide them books in your reading corner. Create your reading corner. Let them create the reading corner. Okay? These are a sample of a picture books about reading to inspire young readers and writers. And actually, I have some books here that you can also use, especially, you know, opening for your school. Try this also around the world. Biscuit goes to school. Okay, something like a great stories that you can provide to them that you think they will love it. Next, use modern technology. Okay, some of your children already using iPads, laptop, cell phones, e-readers. Those are the things that you can let them use to promote reading for fun. Okay, next, the third one, be a good reading model. As a teacher, you should set an example to them. Remember, you should always be a good model, a good example for your children to read. Because if they are see you reading, they will also start reading. Okay, in this picture, you will see one of the parent setting an example to his child in reading. Of course, the child will also follow because he thinks like, oh, looks like interesting. So what you do is what they're going to do. Okay, now here on the right side picture, you will see me reading a story virtually to a 1-year-old child. And you know what happened? The 1-year-old child started to get a book and turn the book by page, starting to scan it. It means she started to have interest in reading. Next, get the whole family involved. As you can see in this picture, as I told you earlier, we have to try to encourage the family to get involved. Send some newsletters to them. Encourage them. Tell them at least 20 to 30 minutes. Let them read a story before going to sleep. Okay? 20 to 30 minutes is a good time for them to encourage them to love reading. Okay? Now, here are some examples of the inspiring quotes about reading. As you can see the picture on the right side, they are the children that I already inspired in the Philippines to love reading. So here, inspiring quotes about reading. Once you learn to read, you will be forever free, from Frederick Douglass. It says, a book is a device to ignite the imagination, by Alan Bennett. And reading is a discount to everywhere, by Mary Smith. Reading is to the mind that exercise is to the body. Okay, so once you read, you exercise your mind too. So reading gives us some place to go when we have to stay where we are. That's from Mason. And one more thing, in addition to these inspiring quotes, based from what we did today, the only inspiring quote that I can share with you is, if you love to read, you will succeed. Keep that in your mind, keep that in your heart. If you love to read, you will succeed. No matter what subject you are teaching, continue to read. Now, how can we help children develop a love of reading in and out of virtual learning? There are some ideas in addition to our topic today to help children develop a love of reading during this season of distance learning. First, virtual read aloud, just like what we did earlier. You can also do your virtual read aloud with your children. Try to record yourself, upload it in YouTube, and share it to your children. Next, phone a friend. Help your children to call their friends through Skype or FaceTime and let them share what they read. Next, online book clubs. Why you should join an online book club? This is also a good thing to develop their social skills. Next, have students listen to books online. There are books online that you can see in Books, Libby, Epic, Storytime. You can see it in the handouts, okay? The resources is in the handouts. Next, do a 30-minute a day for 30-day reading challenge. Let them do the reading challenge. That's gonna be your project for them, okay? Next, create a virtual space for students to share what they are reading, okay? That's a good thing also, that you can create a virtual space for students to share what they are reading. Like what I said earlier, let them create their own library, reading corner, okay? So they can share what they read. Next, try out digital resources, just like the using modern technology. If you know already using the Google Classroom, that's one more thing to try on, okay? Because that's a very, very good site that you can use for your virtual learning. Next, outdoor reading. Encourage your children to do outdoors. It is a very good thing that you can encourage them outside because we need sun. You can let them read independently. Let them make their own tents and read independently outside. At least, once a week, try. Let them, or every day they can, because we need sun every day. Next, turn reading into a service project. How can you turn reading into a service project? Ask them to call their grandparents, those who are lonely, those who are sick. Let them call and read them a story. Let them read a story. Okay, so they can be, they can have fun and enjoy what they are reading, what the children are reading to them, especially this distance learning. Next, host a reading camp or a one-day read-a-thon. At least make your day a special event for a one-day read-a-thon. There's a readathon.com that you can go, and there's a guide there that you can see what you're going to do, okay, for the readathon. Thank you very much. I hope you feel encouraged to help your kids fall more in love with reading. Remember, teachers who love teaching teach children to love learning. I am cheering you on, guys, to do the things that you can do to encourage your children, inspire your children to love reading, because this is very, very important. Remember, a child who reads will be an adult who thinks. Believe in yourself. I know you are a teacher. You are a strong teacher. Believe in yourself that you can do it. Now, thank you guys for listening. I am going to transfer now the presentation to one of my inspiration who continue to inspire me to love reading. No other than my dearest Aunt Sally, Mrs. RIzalina C. Labanda. Take it away, Miss RIzalina.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you guys for listening.
All right. Good morning again. And it's nice to see someone who really loves to share what she has experienced as a teacher. And once she was a teacher in my school in Santa Rosa, one of the best. And no wonder she has been promoted to become a director of 2 daycares in Miami. She is now having the webinar in Miami. And here I am in Houston, Texas. All right, I'm going to share with you components of a balanced literacy program. If you try to take a look at the balance, you have books on one side and the other are pencils. What does that mean? That means to say that there should always be a balance between reading and writing. But I'm not writing portion because we don't have time for that. Maybe what you can do is watch out for future webinars. All right. I want you to take a look at this picture. You see a person with a megaphone. What is he trying to do? And what preposition can you attach to the word read or reading to show you that kind of reading? So that is reading to. That is read aloud. A teacher reading aloud. It does not mean that you're going to get a megaphone so that you can make your voice loud. No. We are just trying to emphasize that you really have to read aloud to the children. Now, what kind of books are you going to read, to use? You can either use small books and big books. It doesn't matter. Right? The next kind of reading is you see now a different scenario. You have children, particularly maybe it's a class, and you have a teacher. And what preposition can you attach to the word read? Reading by the teacher, by, and reading to the children. Reading with, I mean. Okay? Reading by the teacher with the children. That is what you call shared reading. There is now a sharing of responsibility between the teacher and the student. The next kind of reading is now the same scenario, but you have now smaller group of children, maybe from 5 to 6, and still you have the teacher. And this is what you call guided reading. Reading to and by the children. That's guided reading. And the last, which is the ultimate goal of reading, that is to develop independent readers among our students. And that is reading by the student, and that is independent reading. The next question that every teacher will ask is, okay, Emma, if I'm going to implement this kind of reading in my class, how much time do I have? Okay, for read aloud, you can just have 10 minutes. And it does not count any follow-up activities. So with shared reading, you have 10 to 20 minutes. Guided reading, 10 to 20 minutes per group, smaller group. And of course, independent reading, 15 to 30 minutes. And the goal in independent reading is to simply read and get lost in a great book. So teachers cannot tell me that they have no time for this reading. I'm not saying that you can do everything in a session, in one session. For the lower grades, you do a lot of read aloud. It does not mean that you are going to only do the read aloud in the preschool or up to grade 2. No, even up to college, you can do a read aloud. Not the whole novel, maybe. It could be a chapter or a page that you would want to share with a student. All right, the next question is, all right, I have the time. What skills will I cover in doing this kind of reading? For read aloud, well, of course, you have to develop comprehension, vocabulary, and prosody or fluency. When you are reading aloud, you are always modeling. Everything, every activity in the classroom should always be modeled by the teacher. It always starts with us. Next one is shared reading. You now teach decoding, fluency, comprehension again. You develop vocabulary, and you also develop the print concept. You notice that Kathy was then, what is this? Pointing to the word. When you do that, you are teaching the children to read from left to right, which is a print concept. Well, of course, you also give phonics and high frequency words. In guided reading, the same thing, you develop decoding, comprehension, maybe on a higher level, and the print concept still there, until such time that the child becomes an independent reader. And of course, in independent reading, the child develops fluency, comprehension, and vocabulary. What is your role in all these activities? As a teacher, you have to introduce the book, read aloud the text, read aloud, be a model, and ask questions. It doesn't mean that all you have to do is get inside the classroom, get a book out of the shelf, and give that to the children. No, never do that. Our children can easily detect whether you have just read a book before them on that particular time. You have to practice. And I always ask teachers, stand in front of a mirror and practice reading aloud. In shared reading, You also introduce the text. You read aloud. The first time, maybe, for appreciation. The second time, they can join with you. They share the reading with you. And again, you've got to be modeling specific reading strategies. You keep on asking questions. You also tell them to ask questions, make predictions. In guided reading, you again introduce the book. You cannot introduce the book if you haven't read it beforehand, whether it is fiction or nonfiction. And you help students activate prior knowledge. You listen to students read. You discuss text with the students and you ask questions. Usually in guided reading, you can do here, should I say, what you call, you try to diagnose, you ask them to read aloud and detect some of the errors that they commit. Public school teachers always do that. You are always asked to find out the independent reading level of the child, the frustration level, the instructional level. And of course, in the independent reading, you have to encourage the children to love to read. You model how to find the right book. Now, there is actually, for parents, you can teach this to the parent, the 5-finger, test of the kind of book that they have to read. What you are going to do is ask the child to place their hand on a particular page. And wherever those fingers land, they have to read a word. If they can read all those words, that book is easy for them. So even if you don't have the Lexile formula or the Lexile level of the book, the DRA level, you can make use of this. You can advise parents to do that, especially those who are planning to buy books for their children. Okay, that's the 5-finger test. You can teach them or show them how to book talk. You can share synopsis of the book, the titles, and you should really have to schedule class time for independent reading. Model. A teacher who reads and models to the children will be able to encourage children to love to read. Build accountability and reinforce the joy of reading by asking them to do projects like maybe a diorama. They can make rap for the upper grade level. They can make acrostic. They can write poetry about the character that they have read. Any activity that will reinforce the joy for reading. And then you ask, so what will my students do? They have also roles to play. In read aloud, the children should listen. They should ask questions and they should answer questions. They can turn and talk. I call this the TNT. They turn to his peer or classmate and talk. Well, maybe you may not be able to do that inside a classroom this time because of the distancing thing. In shared reading, the children read along with you, and Kathy demonstrated that. Suggest strategies to try out. They ask questions and answer questions. In guided reading, they read the text mostly on their own. They use strategies, they discuss the text, ask questions, and answer questions. For independent reading, what should the children do? Since you have modeled how to choose books, they now can make their own choices. They can assume ownership in reading. They can use strategies, build stronger reading skills, and discover the passion for reading and share books with others creatively. Well, there are things that you should also take into consideration, the difficulty of the text. In read aloud, the text should be above the kids' reading level, significantly, but they should still be able to listen and comprehend. In shared reading, the level should be 1 or 2 levels above an average student's reading level. Guided reading, you know the instructional level. It should be slightly harder than what students could read independently. Why? Because there is no challenge. How can you develop the strategies if the book is already can be read by the child? In independent reading, the text should have no more than 1 in 20 words. That is difficult. Therefore, they should be able to read 95 to 100% accuracy. Texts are reading with high comprehension, or the students are reading with high comprehension. And there is little or no instructional support coming from the teacher. Now, I want you to take a look at this chart where you can see the input of the teacher and the input of the student. Now, take a look at the diagonal line. For read aloud, the greatest input of the teacher is there. Why? Because the students are listening, just listening. It is the modeling of the teacher that is most important. And as you go towards independent reading, the input of the teacher diminishes and the input of the student now increases, so that in independent reading, you have only a very small portion to do, okay? The input now will greatly demand from the student. Try to remember that, because a lot of teachers are still complaining that a lot of students that are already in grade 6, their reading level is still that of grade 2. Well, that is true, especially when the love of reading was never developed in the early grades. Even here in the United States, we experience that. I have grade 4 students who are reading like a kindergarten or a grade 1. So these are the students who go to Title I. They are given extra help. Well, maybe because the love for reading was never developed in the early grade. Okay? Now, I am going to zero in on interactive read aloud. Why? Because this is what we need now, especially when we are talking of the next generation standards. And I know the Department of Education back home are also trying to change or trying to review the standards that we had for K-12. In the US, in New York, we have been doing the next generation standard. But even with a common core, interactive read aloud is very important, because there is one strategy in doing an interactive read aloud that is very important. So, what is interactive read aloud? It is teaching context, a teaching context in which students are actively listening, not a passive listener, but he is an active listener because he has to respond to an oral reading of a text. By whom? By the teacher again. Okay? Why interactive read aloud? Because research has shown that children's listening comprehension surpasses the reading comprehension in the early grade. It's important that our students build knowledge through being read to, that is read aloud, as well as through independent reading with a balance gradually shifting from silent to independent reading. Through interactive read aloud, you will guide students through a close reading. This is now, my dear teacher, the most important component, close reading. Because in close reading, you are now allowing the child to read like a detective. You just don't go on the surface, but you dig deeper into the text. You take into consideration the purpose of the author, the craft of the author, the language used by the author, everything in that particular text. Okay? So you just don't ask literal level questions. You ask higher level thinking questions. Remember, one of the objective of the 21st century skills, what skills we are supposed to develop? To make our children what? Critical thinkers. If you just ask literal level who, what, when, and where, and you don't even follow up, why do you think? Prove to me where you can find the support to what you are saying. That is what you call close reading. Model what good readers do. Engage them in conversation about the text and assist them in acquiring the strategies and confidence that will help them during independent reading, guided reading, and writing. What does an interactive read aloud look like in a classroom? So you see students sitting in a group, teacher reading aloud to the group, teacher modeling, teacher asking questions, student actively participating, and teacher monitoring and responding to student responses. So this is not a one-way traffic. It is a two-way, very interactive. And the teacher should also be very adept at asking good questions. What does an interactive read aloud sound like? Well, you will be able to hear a teacher reading aloud to students, teacher thinking aloud, like, I have read this word. I can decipher this word because I know the smaller word in this big word. Or he can say, I wonder what this character is up to. I wonder where he is going and why did he do this particular thing. So you give them a model of how you think and you think aloud. That is a strategy of a good reader. Teacher asks carefully crafted questions. As I said, not just the who, what, when, and where. Remember, it should be always focused on the text. Then students are allowed also to ask questions. They are asked to predict what will happen. They also respond to the question. They converse and they express ideas. So practically IRA, interactive read aloud, can be done in 15 minutes. No reason for a teacher to say, I have no time for read aloud. I would call that simple laziness. I always demand my teachers in my little school in Santa Rosa. Never let a day go without reading aloud to your children. Forget about other things, but not reading aloud, especially in the lower grades, from pre-K maybe up to grade 3. For the upper grade levels, I still read for my 4th graders. And you know what? That's the only time I can catch their attention. And they know when I read aloud. In math, there are so many books about the concepts in math. You can integrate that. In social studies, so with science, all those, should I say, nonfiction books, you can read aloud. Okay? The teacher's role before IRA. Before you do an interactive reading aloud, what should a teacher do? Set the purpose for the read aloud. For just appreciation, for developing a skill, okay? Select complex text. Pre-read, that's very important. Some of us teachers do a read aloud without even reading the book beforehand. So you don't even know where to pause the thought unit that would be captured in your reading. You need, sometimes you don't have inflection of voice. You need monotonously. I call that a living dead teacher. Okay? And I don't want to see teachers who are living dead. Mga buhay na patay. Walang, anong tawag mo dyan? Walang buhay, walang kabuhay-buhay man lang. And we don't need those teachers inside the classroom. Lalo na ngayong sa virtual classroom. Okay? It does not mean that in the virtual classroom, you just make use of online read aloud. You should also read aloud. Remember, teacher, children love to listen to your golden voices. Okay? So capitalize on that voice. Practice in front of the mirror. The mirror will never tell you a lie. You will know. It will tell you how your eyes open, even your nose, even your mouth, even the kind of movement that you show. Determine vocabulary to address. Determine strategies to teach. And determine strategies you will use to engage students. Now, during IRA, what should you do? You read aloud. Model close reading. Use fluency. Model analytic thinking aloud. These are the metacognitive strategies. Stop at points throughout the text to discuss and ask. Provide students the opportunity to share their thoughts. And try to give them a wait time. Some of us rush everything. We want to finish everything because maybe you don't have anything to test the following day. Please don't teach to test. Try to do everything the proper way. I'd rather that you have few books, but it is what? Done very well, that you have dig deeper into the discussion so that these children, through your modeling, will be able to learn the strategies. Then, of course, you assess student learning formatively. Not all tests need to be scored. You can assess whether they are reading fluently by asking them to read. In order to test whether your students can read, let them read. You cannot learn to dance the tango if you will not take the first step. You've got to do it. So the simple principle is, if you want them to learn to read, let them read. If you want them to learn to sing, let them sing. If you want them to learn to dance, let them dance. Well, if you want to let them learn to talk properly, let them talk properly. Those are very simple principles in teaching. The students' role during IRA, they of course listen, they answer questions, they ask questions, and they use evidence from the text. This is the close reading portion. You just don't ask, okay, how do you find the character? Oh, the character is intelligent. The next question that you should ask is, how do you know? Prove to me. Cite lines in the text. Read lines that will prove that he is really intelligent. Follow up. And that is the purpose of close reading. You are reading like a detective. Okay? You analyze, you dig deeper. Identify vocabulary words with unclear meaning. All these references are given to you in the handouts. Okay, if you want to read more. Happy reading, but I'm not yet done. Happy reading aloud. I'm going to show you a favorite book of mine that I have heard in 1986, the first time I arrived in the United States. And it was read by a deacon in the church. He gathered all the children who were in that mass, and he read it aloud. And I fell in love with that book. Are you ready to listen? Okay. I will not be able to, should I say, show you all this, but that was placed in the classroom, okay, in the Google Classroom. I ask you in advance to view them. These are our wonderful after storytellers, okay? They show us different ways of reading aloud. The first one, Anne read with a book. He read with a book. Okay, you can do that. Ram here, also has a book, but he was not holding it. It was, should I say, just like what I'm going to do now, it will be on a PowerPoint, but he was then reading it aloud. And if you notice, oh, they are wonderful readers, okay? The third one, Giovanni, and I think some of you attended his session today, did not have a book. It was a traditional way of reading, should I say, storytelling. But he was so creative, he made use of puppetry. You can do stick puppets. You can do all those kind of puppets that you know, hand puppets, finger puppets, and so on. That's what he did. And of course, for the last one, she also read with a book. Okay? The famous Turtle and the Monkey of Jose Rizal. Now, all these storytellers have that passion to share that love for reading. And they did that with the program of AFTA, one of the flag, should I say, one of the most important project of AFTA, Kwentuhan Pambata, in the embassy, the Philippine embassy in New York, okay? Every summer, AFTA conducts paaralan, okay, sa konsulado. Volunteer teachers, they volunteer to teach those children who are here in the U.S. about our culture, about our traditions, about the stories that we have, so that they can always connect to their own roots and culture. So that one is already in your Google Classroom. Okay, I think some of you may have heard me already reading this or read this book in a watch. What do you think? Will that child do with a watch? Okay, maybe he's going to throw it away or flush it in the toilet. Let's find out whether your guess is correct. Love You Forever by Robert Munch. A mother held her new baby and very slowly rocked him back and forth, back and forth. And while she held him, she sang, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby, you be. What happened, do you think, to that child? He grew. He grew and grew. He grew until he was 2 years old. And he ran all around the house. He pulled all the books off the shelf. He pulled all the food out of the refrigerator. And he took his mother's watch and flushed it down the toilet. Sometimes his mother would say, this kid is driving me crazy. But at nighttime, when the 2-year-old was quiet, she opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. And if he was asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby, you be. The little boy grew, he grew, he grew, and he grew. He grew until he was 9 years old. And he never wanted to take a bath. And when grandma visited, he always said bad words. Sometimes his mother wanted to sell him to the zoo. But at nighttime, when he was asleep, the mother quietly opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. She picked up that 9-year-old and rocked him back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby, you be. What happened to that boy? Well, of course, he grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a teenager. He had strange friends and he wore strange clothes and he listened to strange music. Sometimes the mother felt like she was in a zoo. But at nighttime, when the teenager was asleep, the mother opened the door to his room, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. If he was really asleep, she picked him up and rocked him back and forth, back and forth. And while she rocked him, she sang, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby, you be. The teenager grew. He grew and he grew and he grew. He grew until he was a grown-up man. He left home and got a house across town. Why do you think he left home? Maybe he's already married. Okay, let's find out whether your guess is correct. But sometimes on dark nights, the mother got into her car and drove across town. Take a look at the picture. What do you notice? Yeah, a ladder. Why is there a ladder on top of the car? What do you think the mother is going to do with the ladder? All right, let's check. If all the lights in her son's house were out, she opened his bedroom window, crawled across the floor, and looked up over the side of his bed. If that great big man was really asleep, she picked him up, rocked him back and forth, and while she rocked him, she sang, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby, you be. Some of my students cried out, Mama's boy. Well, I think some of you think that. Well, that mother, she got older. She got older and older and older. One day, she called up her son and said, you'd better come see me because I'm very old and sick. So her son came to see her. When he came in the door, she tried to sing the song. She sang, I love you forever. I like you for always. But she couldn't finish because she was too old and sick. The son went to his mother. He picked her up and rocked her back and forth. And he sang this song. I love you forever. I like you for always. As long as I'm living, my mommy, you'll be. When the son came home that night, he stood for a long time at the top of the stairs. Then he went into the room where his very new baby daughter was sleeping. He picked her up in his arm and very slowly rocked her back and forth. And while he rocked her, he sang, I love you forever, I like you for always, as long as I'm living, my baby, you'll be. Love you forever. by Robert Munch. Did you like the story? Can you unmute some of them?
They can unmute themselves. Yes,
Okay.
you can. You can unmute yourself.
Did you like the story?
Yes.
Now, for the lower grades, I won't ask them this question. What insights? What learning? Maybe I can just ask them, how did you feel at the end? Or maybe I can ask them, what did you learn from the story? Remember, this book was written, just to give you a background, this was written by Robert Munch because he lost 2 babies. 2 of his babies died. And he wrote this book. Actually, it is supposed to be for adults. Publisher says it's for adults, but no. It is for everybody, for the children, for young adults, for teenagers, for married people, for grandparents, for parents. And if you try to dig deeper into the essence of the story, you can say that the love of a mother knows no boundaries. In relation maybe to the social standing, it has, should I say, touch on early or from infant to toddlers, to 9 years old, to teenagers, young adult, a grown up, and a married man. Each stage in the development of a child has a story to tell. No matter what the children or the child has done, the mother's love is there. It's not only the mother, it could be the father. It has shown us the stages of development, the care, the love, the passion that the parent gives. Now, why did I choose this story to share to you? What is the connection with reading aloud, with reading books? You notice that the mother sang that song even when the man was already married. He passed on that song from one stage to another. And that same song was passed on by the married son to his own daughter. And I know that that same song will be passed on by that daughter to his own child or children. Similarly, talking about reading aloud, inspiring that love for reading. Because unless you have inspired children to love to read, you will never succeed in school. Because all subject areas need reading. Okay? So, what is the connection? Give the children in school, your own children, your neighbor's children, that gift of reading, that love for reading. And whatever you do to them now, that would be the same thing that they are going to give to their children. I saw a comment, the life cycle, the connection that goes on. Yes, that's true. And in our profession, we are dealing with children who needs love, anywhere they are. Okay, big or small, thin or fat, whatever, blue, yellow, brown, They all need love. And I hope our session will be able to inspire you to continue to read aloud to your children. And teachers, whether you are teaching in high school, whether you are teaching in college, in preschool, there is that gift. And I would like to end it. Kathy, I think we have time to play that song. Okay. All right. You can sing with us. You can sing now, everybody. We can unmute you.
This is a very inspiring song.
Okay.
When I'm reading, I am succeeding. I pick up a book and take a look. I'm not right. When I'm reading, I'm reading. I'm turning pages, bending pages, friends all of mine. I love to read. I love to read. I love to read.
Love to read.
And read and read and read and read.
Love to read.
I love to read. I love to
Love
read.
to read.
And read and read and read and read and read. Any type of book, any type of thing. Studying pictures, read the words and find out what they mean. Any type of book, any type of thing. Studying pictures, read the words and find out what they mean. When I'm reading, I am succeeding. I pick up a book and take a look. I'm not right. When I'm reading, I feel so free. And I'm turning pages, changing ages. Friends all of my life. I love to read. I love to read.
Love to
I love
read.
to read.
Love to read.
And read and read and read. I love to read. I love to read. I love to read. And read and read and read. I love to read. Destination, destinations, instructions, fairy tales. More roots and chapters, 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 well. Destination, destinations, instructions, fairy tales. More roots and chapters, 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 well. Reading, reading,
I am
I
succeeding.
love books and take a look. I'm like a spider,
Starts to grow. Reading.
trees around. I'm turning pages, changing ages. I love to read.
All right, that is the theme song of the World Book Day. And they say, make a day every book. Thank you so much. Right? I hope you enjoyed.
Thank you.
So much, Tita Sally.
Thank you.
Have any question?
Yeah, meron po kayong katanungan?
Nagtatapatabol. 892. Naribot ang 892. 107.
Or if you have more questions, you can chat us on our classroom, Google Classroom.
Thank you. Ma'am, ballpen.
Oh, the handouts. The handouts are
Tatay,
there.
palit og sudan tatay, Ben. Isabaw tatay.
Ma'am,
Palit gani.
how can we find the selections, ma'am?
Tatay.
Password.
Ito, ma'am.
Sige, sige,
Ma'am,
sige, naman.
Ma'am Rizalinda,
Bakit
Ma'am
20?
Labanda. Where can we find the selection po?
Which selection? The book?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
The book?
Was it the...
Oh, go to National Bookstore. Go to National Bookstore and buy the book. Or go to Google, go to YouTube. You can find the text and the song.
Okay, the title is Love You Forever.
Yes,
By
Love You
Robert-
Forever by Robert Monk. Now,
M-A-N-T,
you can-
Month.
huh?
Month, the spelling of the family name, M-A-N-T.
Yes, Robert Munch. M-U-N-S-N-C-H. Robert Munch.
M-U-N-C-H.
Yeah.
Okay,
And
thank
this is
you,
a
ma'am.
popular book. When once you go to National Bookstore, they know. Another thing, if you cannot remember the song, make your own melody.
Thank you,
So
ma'am.
much,
Ma'am
also,
Sally.